we are starting the show a little differently today, as you could see. In the weeks and months since going on the race, my wife and I both, having been really surprised at some of the extreme and strange behavior that I displayed on the race, we sought out to seek help and understand why I was having such extreme reactions and why I was behaving in this sort of unusual way on the race. And so we started by doing some research, and then we consulted with some professionals, and they came to the conclusion that I have a condition. That condition is known as ASD, and that stands for Autism Spectrum Disorder. So, yes, a bit of news there. Some of you may have suspected as such, if you know somebody that is on the spectrum. We did not know that I had this condition, although my family has long speculated that I had autism. And yeah, so we found out 6 months ago that I'm on the spectrum, and and I feel like that's important context to have as you see me moving forward through the race. You're going to be upset, and rightfully so, at the ways that I lash out, oftentimes at the person who's in closest proximity to me, which is my wife, and you will be, like I said, rightfully angry and upset at that. But if you can muster the mental and emotional bandwidth to do this, I would ask that you just try to ask yourself in these moments, what else could be going on underneath the surface? What is it that I'm not seeing that can be going on that could help me explain this? Because as I have found, there's incredible explanatory power in an ASD diagnosis, and it helps me to understand a lot of my behavior as I look back on it when I watch these episodes. And so I think that's important context. It's not an excuse, but it does help to explain some of what you're seeing. And I use that example in episode 1 of these recaps that we do, that sometimes what you don't see is just as important to understanding something as what you do see. And so in episode 1, I talked about how we got to the airport first, and that kind of over the top celebration I had at LAX. Well, once you understand that missing context, the fact that we, on the way to the airport, we lost our clue and we had to go back and look for it, and we ended up finding it. And it was only after thinking that we were in last place that we got to the airport, realized we were first, and that really helped to explain the behavior. So now it didn't sound so over the top, right? So now that you have this missing context about me, I hope that it can help fill in some of the gaps and help you understand why you're seeing me behave in these ways. Again, not as an excuse, but just to bring some understanding and hopefully a little bit of grace as we move forward into the race. With that said, we're going to go ahead and get into the show. And I'm going to introduce you to my wife and co-host. She is a paragon of patience. She is the goddess of grace. And I'm so thankful to have someone like her in my life. She's the only woman strong enough to deal with someone like me. Wife and co-host Anna Towns. Welcome.
It's so interesting. I mean, I think we can just jump right into our top 10, but sorry, I totally messed that up.
Go ahead. Just keep going.
It's so interesting because, you get a phone call from your casting producer and they start asking all of these questions, and the only word that I knew back then to describe you as was like a diva.
Yeah, that's how she described me too. So there's a lot of different producers on the show. You have the executive producers, you have field producers, and you have something called story producers. And they are the ones that are tasked with learning about you and your story and your relationship. And so when they asked her to describe me, she would describe me often as a diva.
Right. And, that I had to explain that there's a reason why we have to carry these 3 different hats, because just in case one goes missing, we have a backup on a backup on a backup. And why I have to make sure we have chapstick on demand at all times. So I packed 15 sticks of chapstick, and I had all of these Band-Aids with me, even though in retrospect, if we needed a Band-Aid, we could get it. But I didn't have a proper explanation to this. I met this man so many years ago, and I always knew you were different. I always knew you were so unique. And I always just thought it came kind of like hand in hand with why you were so intelligent. You were just this very particular individual, but now we know. It's not just like a preference. It's not that you don't want to be outside in the sun. It's not that you don't like to be uncomfortable. It's literally that when it happens, like the stimuli in your brain just makes it want to go crazy, and it could lead to a complete meltdown, which I had never seen.
Yeah, I have a hyperactive brain, and so you're going to see me persistently irritable throughout my time on the race, because when I'm on the race, unlike when I'm at home, I cannot control the external factors. I have no control. My routines are completely non-existent, and so we rely on people like me rely on routines in order to help us regulate our emotions and to control the amount of stimulus that we can get at any given time. And so when you don't have those routines to fall back on, it allows for this thing to kind of grow out of control. And you often saw it on the show where it just gets out of control, like in episode 5, and you saw like, you know, a full-blown shutdown and a meltdown.
And it was so hard for me because, you know, as somebody that understands how he functions, it's like, it's so stressful for me because I'm trying my best to try to maintain and control, and I couldn't. So the best thing that I could have done at that time is just give him this patience and this grace to not be an added factor of why you were on the verge of an anxiety attack, or why you felt like you were about to just completely shut down. And so it might have come across to a lot of people like, oh, this girl is a total doormat. But no, this was me loving my husband and giving him the patience that he needed from me right then and there.
And you have to understand, you're seeing me and her struggle with this thing that neither one of us understand in that moment.
I didn't have the proper tools.
Neither one of us did. I didn't have the tools to help myself manage this condition that I had, this disorder. And it is a disorder, just to remind you, there's no cure for this ASD. And so it's just who I am. My brain is made differently than most normal people.
It's so interesting because I think if we would have known, like if there was a proper diagnosis to this before, I think we would have reconsidered.
We definitely
such an extreme thing that is going on the Amazing Race,
yes,
that pulls you away from every comfort that you have ever experienced.
100%.
And get thrown into different countries at any given day.
Definitely would have thought twice about applying to the race, but especially the season of twists, which, you know, we'll talk about, which is especially difficult for someone like me, because even as you prepare for the race, you can sort of, you know, develop these plans and okay, well, I'll do this when this happens.
Understand what it's going to be like.
But when you go on a season of twists, it's like doubly difficult for someone who is so
100%,
you know, averse to unpredictability. And so, I want to do something just quickly. Let's go back and look at some of the things that you may have seen that may have struck you as kind of weird, which to me now make total sense. So in leg 2, you may or may not have seen that I put my underwear on the outside of my leotard, right? That's kind of weird. I think everybody can agree that's sort of weird. In leg 3, you saw me sort of using my feet to fold origami. One thing they did not show is when I got onto my back and started sliding across the floor and folding the origami with my back, which was probably so weird they didn't want to show it on TV. But then you saw in leg 4, you saw that I mentioned I don't go outside much. Right. And at the time when I'm saying this, I don't know that this is necessarily connected to this disorder. That's just who I am. And these are part of the coping mechanisms that I've developed over time to deal with this condition that I didn't know I had. And so I mentioned I don't go outside a lot. You saw the hats. You see the 2 hats. You see the 2 pairs of glasses, right? Because, you know, if someone brings God 2 pairs of glasses,
one of them falls and breaks or we lose a pair. Yes.
I'm hypersensitive to light and to heat. So I have 2 hats. I have 2 glasses. And so you could see us doing these things unconsciously, knowing that I have something inside of me that is different, but not knowing that it's ASD. And so I think if you look back through the episodes, you could see signs. One thing you did not see is in leg 1, when I got to the mat and I had that moment, that controversial moment with Phil. One thing you did not see was a complete meltdown right there in front. I did it right there in front of Phil. I was sobbing and I was inconsolable. For about 15, 20 minutes, the producers had to come and talk to me, and it was probably really uncomfortable for Phil and for everybody there. But I was sobbing uncontrollably
because people assumed that you were so upset because you came in second. What they didn't understand. Oh my gosh!
It wasn't because I came in second, guys. It wasn't because I
Because you
came second.
understood at this point that it was going to be so hard for you.
I understood right
deal
after
with
leg one
everything that comes with
that I wasn't equipped to deal with
when
this
things
race.
are not in your control. And
Yep. And so it wasn't about coming in second. It was because I knew it was going to be a struggle for me. And I actually, you may not know this, but I actually, we almost went home after leg one because I realized how hard it was going to be on me. And I didn't want to continue on this race because I didn't know how, if I was going to be able to make it to this race, given this thing that I have. So in the end we decided to stay. My wife convinced me to stay and tough it out, and we did. And I'm grateful that we did. But if it wasn't for her, we probably would have left after leg one.
Jonathan has been talking about being in the Macy race for so many years, and I just knew that if we would have gone home, like, you would have had these regrets and always wonder what would have been like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also, like, especially now, knowing what we, that it's an actual disorder, it didn't stop you from doing well in the race. It didn't stop you from succeeding in the race. I mean, we proved that in, the legs coming up to this leg. But, we just didn't know how hard it was going to be.
We did not know how hard it was going to be, guys. So, you're going to see some stuff. You're going to see somebody on this show. You're going to see somebody struggling on this race, and somebody struggling with this condition that they do not know that they have. So if I could use an analogy very quickly before we get into our show, I would compare it to a computer, right? When your computer is running too many processes, the central processing unit, or the brain, gets overheated. And what happens? You hear the fans kick on, right? And when that happens, it's trying to cool down the CPU, and you might get a warning on your computer telling you need to close some of these. Oh my God, the bearded dragon is out.
I let her out. It's
okay.
fine.
Sorry, our bearded dragon is crawling around. I was scared. And your computer might give you a warning saying, hey, you need to close some programs. You have too many processes running. And what will happen sometimes? Well, the computer will shut down, right? Out of nowhere, it'll unexpectedly shut down. And that's the same thing that happens to me. When my brain is overstimulated, I will sometimes shut down.
I remember
that's what happened on leg 5.
Jonathan Littman, he even asked us that question. He's like, okay, so if something like doesn't go right, like you just shut down, like then what? And I don't think anybody could understand, and it was so hard for me to explain what this is like. But I think he just saw this very complex individual and was like, wow, okay, he's just very complex. But I don't think anybody was ready for everything that came with that.
That includes us.
And that includes me. I didn't have the proper tools to help you.
The behavior that you're seeing on the race, this was a complete surprise to both of us.
Because this is the extreme situation. This is what people fail to think about. This is not our daily life.
This is the first time in our lives that I have been outside. I didn't have an opportunity to control my environment. I didn't have any routines I could fall back on. I was on a game show, and I was on a game show where I had no control over things. And so that's what allowed us to see this problem that I've been living with for 40 years in a way that allowed us to really recognize it for what it was, which is a disorder. Yeah. So I think we've talked long enough about this. Yeah. Why don't we get into the show now? I guess that was kind of number 10, right? We talked about how this has affected our relationship. And again, just so you know, please rest assured, we are doing the work to grow and learn from this experience, especially with respect to me having this condition, which presents a unique difficulty for us.
In our communication, just trying to understand what he's going through, and him trying to understand that, it's almost like you have these two individuals whose brains just work completely differently, and just how to make that work. I feel like now we can look back at any issues, problems, conflicts we've had in the past.
It's like, that's why that happened. Everything makes sense. And that's
so much sense.
That's the almost magical thing about an ASD diagnosis.
I can see clearly now.
The fog is lifted, and it really has the power to just explain so much in your life. And I'm going to talk about that later in future videos. Yeah. But now we're finally able to develop some tools and some strategies for managing this condition. And So welcome, guys, to our Top 10 Countdown.
we're going to move on to number 9, which is our homestay in Penglipuran village, which I am so glad you guys got to see a glimpse of. All of the teams going into our homestay, which was in that little town where we did our Penjor challenge.
Penglipuran village,
and Panjagan.
It was awesome. It was freaking awesome. I mean, that was a
It was so
surprise
cool.
because you expect to be taken to a hotel after the leg, but
right.
they walk you down those stairs, which you saw with all those pinjors lining this staircase, and we get to
so
go into one of those
beautiful.
houses that we put a pinjor in front of.
Right, and we had a host family, so they welcomed us
Wonderful
into their
host, yeah.
home. And I recall our host, like she came out with her husband and her 2 daughters, which was so cool because it actually made me sad because it made me think of my 2 daughters.
It immediately reminded of Naya and Jada, our 2 daughters, and it was kind of a bittersweet moment there.
Right.
But it was cool, man. I got to play soccer with them and kick around the ball with them for a little bit. The youngest one brought out her dolls, and
It was so sweet.
it was just really cool.
It was so sweet. I'm sure it was like a cool memory to have, these foreigners in their house.
And the eldest daughter, remember, she had that shirt on. She had a San Francisco shirt on,
and
and
that's where we got married.
That happened to be the place
so
where we got
I just
married.
told him
So
immediately that it's a good omen.
it felt like a good omen,
we're
and
meant to be here right now.
and
throughout
throughout the race, we would get signs from the universe
Or angels. I thought we had
where-
angels
and
on the path.
it would remind us that this is where we're supposed to be right now. We are on our destined path.
Yeah.
Despite the trials and tribulations we would be put through, we knew this is where we were supposed to be. And so
Right.
that was kind of one of those signs.
Oh my gosh. And then we were brought some Balinese coffee, you guys. I love coffee.
Oh, yeah.
And when she brought us our coffee, it was such a treat. And I mean, I felt so fortunate that we had this amazing host to, welcome us into her home.
Yeah.
And it was super sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so we start the leg the next day, right? We wake up, start the leg 5.
Right.
This is episode 5.
Which, by the way, I forgot my earrings, you guys. I only packed 1 pair of earrings. Remember, we had all these extra things for Jonathan. I was very minimal as far as like the things that I packed. And I had these pair of Kendra Scott earrings that I loved. And I forgot them on the side table. And I was adamant about getting them. I told the camera crew, I'm like, I need to go get them. So I ran up, the ramps all the way to our house. I ran in, grabbed my earrings, and ran back down. And literally, I was seconds away from our departure time.
So you
Which
grab
was,
those.
what was it, like 5?
Yeah.
5 in the morning?
I kind of wanted you to leave them behind, but at the same time, I understand. Sometimes you
my
just need
one
that
thing.
one thing.
That was my
It's
one
like a
thing.
security blanket, and it's like I need
Right.
these earrings so that I could,
Right.
be comfortable. And so I
It's
get
the only
it.
way I feel feminine if I'm wearing like a pair of earrings. Then
Yeah.
I'm good.
Anyways, that's number 9. Are you ready to go to number 8?
Yes. So what time was our release time? I know you're worried about
Well, I don't want him
Quibbly.
to. I don't want to step on him. If you,
No, she's good.
Okay.
Sorry, bearded dragon is out catching the sun.
Yeah,
She's sunbathing.
Okay. Anyways, number 8, before the storm. Yes. So there would be a major twist on this leg,
Yeah, but
and
first of all, I have to address. We left at 4:58. I recall.
yes,
Did you know we had a 42-minute lead?
I did
the other
not.
teams? I was
42
actually
minute
shocked
lead.
to know how big of that lead
I
was.
knew
'cause
we
it
had
didn't
a-
feel like it.
I knew we had a bit of a leak because Carson Jack. We were at the Monkey Temple for a while before Carson Jack got there, and so I knew we had a bit of a lead. But when I saw on the show that it was a 42-minute lead, I was
Also,
stunned.
because remember, we missed the pit stop. We saw Phil before we dropped off our Penjor, and you got to go to the bathroom.
Right. So people said we blew the express pass by using it on the roadblock, but actually, if you calculate for the fact that we got lost on the way to the pit stop
Right.
and used the bathroom during the detour,
That's huge.
that express pass earned us
Huge.
probably close to an hour on the
But
next
I
team.
think that is the reason why we were able to do Penjor so quickly and so
Yes.
efficiently, because we
Again.
were so relaxed that we had that extra cushion and that I wasn't exhausted from, threshing the rice.
And it's so counterintuitive. You think the more relaxed you are, the slower. But no, it's you actually move faster when you're
Right,
relaxed, and that's kind
exactly.
of proof of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, let's see. So we're standing outside the Monkey Temple,
Right.
and
Eventually we see teams arrive.
Carson and Jack come,
Yeah.
and we greet them with an embrace.
Right. Like I still, thought they were my friends.
We haven't seen episode 4. We haven't seen what you've seen. So right now we're thinking, hey, it's Carson and Jack. They say thank you for the 20 pounds, and we're good. And then Scott and
Right.
Lori come, and we have kind of a different.
The energy shifted a little
there,
bit. Yeah, for sure. Well, immediately, they make it known that they took it personal that they got 25 pounds.
It gets a little awkward
And
'cause
I'm
we
just
gave them the
like,
25.
well, you guys did really good. And they're like, we did okay, even though they've admitted that they crushed it.
Mm-hmm.
They made us feel terrible.
Yeah.
You can say it in our face that we feel like bad, that they feel upset.
And so one of my weaknesses, knowing what you know now, it shouldn't be hard to see this, but one of my weaknesses is with social interactions. And so you see me get very uncomfortable and I feel very awkward. And, anytime there are emotions involved, it just makes it that much worse. So I get extremely uncomfortable and I kind of rely on my wife in these times to do the social kind of.
But even element. I feel bad. I feel bad that, these people are upset and that I was responsible for that. I never want to be responsible for someone feeling, hurt or upset. And later we learned that, what is that term they use in reality TV shows? That they missed.
There's this thing called misting that we were not aware of. Just to remind you guys, we're just two parents. We're two tired parents. Right? We are not reality TV geeks, or
we just love The Amazing Race.
We just like The Amazing Race, and we it's the only reality show that we really watch. And
truly,
we didn't really have time to prepare for this race the way other teams have. We don't sit around watching reality TV. Most of our time is spent with our two girls.
Well, I think either way, I don't think I would have prepared myself to deceive people. That was not part of what I thought The Amazing Race was like, and that's not who we are.
But apparently, there's this thing called misting, and it's a term that's. I guess it originated in the reality TV community, and it's more for shows like Survivor and Big Brother. It's when you are trying to impart to a team that everything is okay, when in actuality things are not okay. They're actually gunning for you, but you want to miss them, and I guess make them feel like everything's cool. So you kind of put this mist over their eyes, and
so you're actively deceiving them.
It's deception. It's a technique
and you're being dishonest
used to
about
deceive
your intentions just to get to a specific result.
Yeah.
And we learned that this is what, unfortunately, Scott and Lori were trying to do because it worked.
And it worked very effectively.
Because we feel bad. And that was their intention.
And they gave us a little fake hug. And they say in this episode, a few minutes later, we guilt tripped Anna and Jonathan out there outside of the monkey temple in order to prevent them from U-turning us, and it worked because we are we don't understand this misting thing. We people that take people at face value. We wear our hearts on our sleeve, and so had we been more aware of this, I feel like maybe we would have clued in onto what they were doing there.
At least we're more intuitive as far as what the people's intentions were.
And we'll get to more of that later. But before we go into the live U-turn vote, we want to talk about Han's yoga session. Our baby Han.
Oh my goodness!
She hosted
they didn't show
an impromptu yoga session for the whole cast right there outside of the monkey temple. It was
almost
awesome.
like she knew we needed just a little peace and zen. And because some madness was about to go down, and
she sensed it, and so she put on a yoga session. We all sat there, we did yoga.
I'm gonna show a picture because
maybe
it
we could
was
put a picture for him. It was a really special moment. I was very disappointed it did not make it into the episode, but
I know, well, because we had a bit of a a powwow together, and then leave it to the live U-turn vote to just kind of solve that.
Yeah, that kind of putting an end to the whole kumbaya feel from Han's yoga session. Anyways, let's move on to number 7. This is it. The live U-turn vote. And I must say, this was absolutely diabolical as far as
biggest twist so far.
As far as twists go. I said last time, I thought the driver's seat twist was cool because it didn't really impact the game in a significant way. Drama. It just stirred up some drama.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great. This is probably, I would have to say, this is like the opposite of that. It shook up the game in a major way, and a lot of people were actually kind of disappointed with the way
it turned out.
This twist kind of turned out.
But, especially I think because it personally affected us, the first thing that we knew immediately was that 42-minute lead was absolutely gone. That 42-minute lead into the leg that we could potentially use to, still
to
maybe
survive
get
a driver's
U-turn.
seat.
Yes, or maybe get to the board first, or still be able to complete both detours, which you later learn were just like our absolute worst nightmare. That was very useful, and it was gone. That lead was completely gone.
So I felt like in the end, the driver's seat ended up feeling kind of like bait. We took the bait, and now the mousetrap was being dropped on us. And
although we admitted that we were going to get U-turned regardless.
Yes, that's true.
Whether we had the express pass
Correct.
or whether we were in the driver's seat,
right?
Even another teammate made it clear that we were a competitor.
It became apparent right away that there were going to be immediate consequences for the driver's seat, and that culminated in this live U-turn vote.
Yeah.
Now, very quickly, there are some people saying this is a fair game. We've seen this before in the race. I'm here to tell you, no, you have not. This is completely without precedent on The Amazing Race. 37 seasons of the race, they have never done this except for ours. Let me tell you why. I know what you're saying. They did the U-turn vote in season 35.
Right.
It's not the same, guys. There's no equivalence here, and I'm going to tell you why.
Didn't Annalie kept her lead?
She had a lead coming in from the prior leg.
So even she
an hour
actually
lead,
had
right?
an hour lead.
She had an hour lead.
So by the time she found out she was being U-turned, she still had enough time to manage to do that other detour and fairly survive.
And so she was able to survive that vote.
Right.
Our lead was evaporated. We were equalized with everybody right at the start, and they did not respect that time advantage that we had coming into the leg. So,
yeah,
that's very frustrating. I'm sorry. I don't know why you would expect me to have a good day after that.
I think that was your first frustration.
So right off the bat, I'm frustrated because I'm like, you took my lead away, and now
I'm gonna show. I took a picture of this moment where I just knew like it was gonna be a bad day, and I'm gonna put it side to side with my comparison. So I'm gonna show you.
Yeah.
You guys let me know if it's accurate.
I feel like it would have been. I would have received it much differently if they preserved that time lead that we had. Because honestly, in 45 minutes, we could have done both detours in that time.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been an issue. We probably would have finished middle of the pack.
I think if that 45-minute lead would have been preserved, like it would have for sure like set the tone a little differently. We would have had enough time to react and get on our feet and even perform that second detour, right? But because that 45-minute lead was 42-minute lead was gone. I mean, that was huge.
Suddenly we're in the back fighting for our lives, our survival on the show. And so that was not that did not make me happy.
So
that was very stressful for us.
So stressful.
And so that does not compare to season 35, and it also is not equivalent to season 31. In season 31, it was a public kind of vote. Everybody got to talk to each other and kind of make their case. There was the potential for due process to take place there. When it's a secret ballot and and we don't get to really plead our case to everybody, it's just like,
not only that, but also like
I
feel like once we selected who we were going to U-turn, like you couldn't change your vote. And once I started hearing like people speak who they were voting, I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could change my vote.
I wish I could have changed this.
Couldn't.
So we were locked in
because I thought my intuition maybe was kind of off. I'm like maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm perceiving things differently. But when I heard other teams speak up about how they saw that they were being dishonest, I was like, oh my gosh, it's not just me.
Yeah, and so we would have changed it right there.
Oh my gosh, 100%.
Yeah.
So that was a bummer.
And I just want to say, once again, there's no equivalence to this. This live U-turn vote, the way it was implemented on this season of the race, is completely without precedent. Okay, so yeah, just want to make that clear. There was no time to repair relationships. There was no time to mend those relationships and even play the social game, so to speak. So the consequences were immediate and they were inescapable. Okay, for us. So
it's
that
not
was
like
tough.
other reality TV shows. We're just gonna sit around and try to reconnect with people. We didn't have any time for that.
I knew right then and there it's gonna be a bad day for me, and that's when I started spiraling. It was right then and there at the vote.
Then and there.
Anyways, you want to talk about why we U-turned Nick and Mike?
Well, first of all, we didn't want to U-turn anyone. We felt terrible for what we had done on the driver's seat. We felt terrible that people were upset at us. Like we took that not personal, but we feel bad.
We felt so bad that
we're responsible for
we almost
this.
voted for ourselves. We almost said, let's just vote for ourselves because we've got our hands dirty enough. So many teams hate us after the driver's seat.
I told that to Josiah last week when we saw him. He's like, oh my gosh, why would you do that?
We recognized at the time that Carson Jack were the biggest threat. And I think this, but we did not U-turn him. And I think this moment really highlights the differences in our two teams' philosophies when racing. And
racing, yeah.
You know, there are some people who they're playing more strategically. Yeah. They are making gameplay decisions. And we talked with Carson Jack last week, and
they made it clear it was
we
all
cleared
gameplay.
some things up with them.
It wasn't personal.
Yeah, because we were hurt by a lot of the things that we saw on TV, and so we cleared some things up with them, and they let us know this was our gameplay, and I respect that. I completely respect.
But listen,
that kind of gameplay.
Even with that said, though, you can't play a game where you're purposely being deceitful and expect people to get hurt and not expect people to feel a certain way. You know,
so that's all that we explained to Carson Jack. Is like it was we felt.
Yeah.
Like you guys were
and
sort
honestly,
of deceitful.
I feel like even then, like if I'm still watching the race and I see that people are actively being dishonest, like I'm going to call it out for what it is.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think both things are fair.
Right.
You could respect their game, but also call them out for, things that we feel are
100%.
They go against our values. And so I guess that's how we're going to proceed going forward. Right. Anyways, on to number 6, the perfect storm. So let's just set the scene once again. Okay. Number 6, the perfect storm. We had a 45-minute lead that was evaporated right from the jump. Mm-hmm. We were being U-turned. We
Obviously.
had been betrayed by people that we thought were our friends.
Unfortunately.
We were looking at extreme heat conditions. And we were
Bali,
also,
summertime in Bali.
and as we would find when we get to the detour, we're looking at you facing your biggest fear. So if you put all these
Surprise.
ingredients together, it has all the makings for a very bad day. And a very bad day it was.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, from beginning to end, it was just
And
it's just a bad.
And
bad
the
day.
the spiraling started at that U-turn vote. You know, my brain operates on cold, hard logic. And so when I consider all these things in my head, our lead taken away, we've just been U-turned and there was no escape from this U-turn. Right off the bat,
insanity.
I've reached my nonsense limit for the day. This is not making sense to me. Why are we being punished
this
for doing
happening?
well in the race?
Yeah.
So already right off the bat, I'm done with the silliness. Okay. And this is why everything kind of went
Yeah.
downhill and kind of, snowballed.
I think everybody saw that moment in the cab where I was just like feeling emotional. And that was just kind of like the end of it. As we were walking through the Monkey Temple, I was in tears. I don't know why I felt so hurt. The Carson and Jackie turned me.
It hurt bad.
I was so hurt to the point where like towards the end I just felt angry, and that continued on. And I understand how like that's not good for team morale. Like you want to try positive, stay positive. I just needed this moment to just let it out.
So on the way to the detour, neither one of us was in a particularly good headspace, which was in stark contrast to Scott and Lori, who, if you notice, it was very interesting. They cut to
Yeah,
Scott and Lori, and they're
sure
just,
was.
they have that irrepressible positivity and optimism,
Right.
and then they would cut to us, and we're all sullen and
But it makes
crying
me
and
question if maybe
irritable.
we just create deeper connections to people. I don't know why I would be happy.
Well,
even
it's
in the
interesting
midst of
because
all of
in a way,
this.
we both teams felt like they were betrayed, but only one team was really visibly affected by that betrayal. And I felt like whatever this difference is, it needs to be studied, because I found this very interesting how we reacted so differently to these apparent betrayals.
we were opposites. Yeah.
And I think that speaks to how some people just take things differently.
Especially because I think if you reach out to like people that are close to us, like I think one of the words that they would say that they describe us as is loyal and generous. And
Yes.
and we take that serious. Relationships mean something to us.
Yeah, and I think just people have different definitions of what a friendship is, right? I
Or,
think so.
or we're close because we had a conversation. And it's
Yeah,
just,
I think
I
exactly.
get it.
So
I get it.
yeah, exactly. So, anyways, I have a very bad moment on the taxi ride to the beach. I told my wife to stop crying, and I said it in a very harsh kind of tone, and
Right.
I apologize for that. That was terrible. There's absolutely no excuse for that. But I will just describe what my mindset was at the time. So at this point, I described how there was this perfect storm of factors which contributed to this sort of spiraling. And inside my head, it felt like there was a nuclear reactor that was melting down. That's how high my stress level was at this time, because I had all of these thoughts going in my head, and I'm on the way to these detours, fighting for my life on the Amazing Race. And so I was already spiraling at that time. And so I just feel like when the house is on fire, and I'm focused on getting that fire put out. And so when my wife starts crying, I kind of get irritated. And I feel like you're giving me another fire to put out. That's
Right.
how I felt. Even though I know now, like, she's going to express her frustration in her way, and I need to respect that. At that time, I was just so overwhelmed with everything that was happening at that time that
Right.
I felt like I didn't have time to deal with the crying.
Again, we have these two different people that function differently. And I think now with understanding, that just like your concerns and feelings are valid, and how I should, give you space or help you handle those. Like my feelings are valid too.
Right.
Like I'm going through this moment on my own. And while you didn't think it was appropriate, you were just kind of like, we need to be tough now. We need to stay positive. We need to get this done. It's like, I just needed to let that out, because as you notice, for the rest of the leg, I womaned up, I put on my big girl pants on, and I did whatever I had to do to stay on the race. So yeah, I just needed that moment.
And
to
I will
just
say
let it
this,
out.
looking back at what I was seeing and knowing what I know about myself now, it's so hard for me to be supportive and helpful to somebody when my brain is in this overheated state.
Yeah.
And so one thing that, we're going to work on doing, and that I want to learn how to do, is how I can support you when I'm not at my best and when my brain is, not functioning optimally, let's say.
Right. Okay. So this brings us to number 5, which is Kryptonite.
Kryptonite.
So as you all have already seen on the show, water is our kryptonite. That is the thing. That is our thing.
We find out Anna does not know how to swim, and she has a crippling fear of the open water. And oh, what an awful way to start the day, right?
Again, I think I've explained this briefly on the last episode. Like, my family just never had enough resources for any extracurriculars. Like, we didn't do swimming lessons. We didn't live by the beach. We didn't have a pool. We didn't have access to these kinds of things. You know, my parents, they both worked 2 jobs. I would stay home and take care of my siblings and clean the house and, you know, do all those things. I didn't have that privilege. I didn't go to vacations. I didn't go to the beach. It was just not something that I was exposed to.
Yeah.
Just like sports.
Yeah.
And it becomes a thing that becomes an issue on the race.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Did we expect water coming into the race? And just so you know, guys know, every season of the Amazing Race doesn't have water in it. I mean, I think somebody put up a stat on Reddit the other day that said this is the 11th season, only the 11th out of 37 seasons where anybody had to swim in a body of water. So it's not something that I necessarily expected.
But I saw it in season 35, and, you know, I saw that they had vests. That's really why when I came out of the ocean, I was like, I'll just get a vest and power through it, and I did. But I only saw that one challenge. So my brain wasn't full of fear of like, oh my gosh, we're just gonna be on the water all the time. It just didn't. So preparing to go on the race did not involve going to the beach every day to try to, you know, tackle that fear of mine.
Yeah, I think the only water preparation we did was kayaking, canoeing.
And
that's
like
it.
getting in the pool.
Because we see a lot of canoeing.
Stuff.
I've seen that before. But actually having to swim through the ocean, like, Jesus.
I mean, but no.
You don't see that very often on the race.
This ocean was different, though. This Balinese ocean and these waves were just... And I was full of adrenaline, you guys, because I still watched the episode. I'm like, I cannot believe I did that. I was just like... I was on survival mode, and I voiced it in the episode, and I was like, I am going to do whatever it takes. Like, to go in there without the vest initially, I'm like, what is wrong with me? What was I thinking?
You know, you mentioned that you don't have, you know, you weren't raised in privilege. You didn't have a lot of access to extracurricular.
Yes.
And I do think it's worth mentioning that we have seen many times on the show Black and brown people struggle in the water. And we saw it as recently as season 34, right?
I think of Aubrey and David.
Remember in that season, there are going to be
spoilers
here in case you haven't watched season 34. So you get muted for the next couple of seconds here. But remember, David got eliminated in the penultimate leg of his season because of his struggles in the water. Mm-hmm. So we've seen this before. And I just think people just... shouldn't take for granted that everybody knows how to swim.
Absolutely not.
Because that's not our reality.
Or even, you know, being exposed to water sports or or surfing, all of those things. Like that's different than any lifestyle I had ever grown up with.
There was some confusion there as to whether you actually needed to swim all the way out. I know I don't remember exactly what the clue said. I think it said both players must enter the water. I'm not sure if we actually had to. I don't know if you actually had to swim all the way out. I don't know. Looking back, I wonder if that clue said you actually had to go out with me. But I think it was nice that you got to conquer your fear. I thought you inspired a lot of people, right? You got a lot of messages from people.
I did. It was shocking because a lot of people that know how to swim and are expert swimmers are like, I am still afraid of the ocean. Like the fact that you were able to do that, it's pretty amazing, and that was really cool. And I want my daughters to be able to see that and understand that mommy did a hard thing, even when she didn't want to. She pushed through it, and how you can go to a mental place and accomplish these things is pretty special. So I'm glad I was able to do it.
Yeah, and I was so proud of you. And this is not like an unusual fear. This is apparently a fear that a lot of people have. So I think a lot of people were very inspired by what you did. So I think that was really cool. Yeah. Do you want to talk about the express pass?
But I mean, even you, like...
I'm not a great swimmer. I'm not exactly a dolphin either in the water. So it's hard for me. And if you remember, when you watch the show, for some reason, this girl just went out without a life vest. And she was in Superwoman mode. She was holding on to me. I was struggling to stay afloat by myself. She was kind of holding on to me. And at some point, she became so scared that she was fully like pulling me down in the water, and it became a dangerous situation.
These waves were coming, and I was terrified.
She was terrified. So we had to get out of there, get her a life vest, and try it again. And thankfully, she was able to do it. Yeah, that wasn't fun. What I was saying though is What if we did have that express pass though? And if we,
Oh
I
my
mean, we
gosh.
definitely would have used it on this leg.
I think in the back of my head, I was thinking this will be a great time to pull that pass.
But two things. Number one, you would have never conquered your fear.
100%.
And number two, can you imagine? People were already mad about this twist because they put like what they feel are the top two teams in the competition in a situation where they were fighting for their lives. If we had the express pass,
it would have been immediate
people would have
elimination
been
for the
it
other
would have
team.
been that's the instant death sentence for
wouldn't
Scott
had
and
a
Lori.
chance.
And so I think people would have been even more upset about this twist.
I would have been upset.
Had we
Like,
actually
what?
used the express pass here.
What?
So I think we kind of helped the show there by using our express pass in leg 4 because
My intuition, you just
at
get rid
least
of it.
It made it a fight. You know
Let
what
it
I mean?
go.
Yeah.
You don't want to. You don't want to thresh no rice. Use it now.
So good thing we did use that. Anyways, let's move on to number 4. Coconuts. Ooh, this was a classic kind of amazing race detour. It was pretty straightforward.
Right.
Hustle task, but with a kind of tricky component added in, and that was transporting them on this bike,
and these
rickety
like,
bike.
These like rickety bikes that can't even balance, and they were so hard to maneuver.
We got a bad bike, by the way.
Terrible bike.
I feel like we got a bad bike.
Switch it after the second time. I don't know.
I figured they were all
I wasn't
bad,
even
but
thinking.
yeah.
Did you have any idea how heavy coconuts are?
Oh my gosh, coconuts are incredibly heavy, and I,
mean,
guess they're filled with liquid.
with liquid.
So you're
like
bringing-
there's like
yeah.
the coconut fruit, and then the oh my gosh,
I
it
felt like
was
one coconut was maybe
that
5 or 6 pounds. Do you think there are more?
I thought they were more
Might
like
be
10
more.
pounds.
It could have been 10. It could have been 10. It could have
So
been 10.
trying to balance this super old bike that's not balancing on its own without the coconuts. Then you add the coconuts on top of it. It was so hard. It was so hard in the heat.
And then add in, the fact we know now that it's not just a preference for cooler temperatures.
No.
I have a sensitivity to bright light and
I think
heat.
it's so important to emphasize that because
yeah.
I've even had previous racers talk about, oh, everybody had to do it. Why couldn't you do it? And I think that is such an insensitive thing to say.
To compare the experience of another person to you is it just first of all, it completely misunderstands what's happening inside of me, and just want to clarify that this was not a toughen up situation. You wouldn't tell someone with a peanut butter allergy to toughen up if they're having an allergic reaction to peanut butter.
Exactly.
In the same way, calling me out for not being stronger in this situation, I feel like is wildly inappropriate.
Very insensitive and unkind.
And that's before, I feel like that's inappropriate even without knowing that I have a condition that makes me hypersensitive to the sun and to heat. I don't think that should ever be done.
No, absolutely not. I just want to give a special shout out to the people that actually did reach out.
Oh yeah.
And they saw something beyond what everybody else saw it. And I read this quote this week and it really stuck to me. And it talked about how the smartest people in the room are usually the kindest because they're able to see beyond themselves and beyond their own wants and needs and what they think should be right and wrong. They reached out, and before you even said anything, like they knew something was wrong.
Yeah, special shout out to Angie Butler and Danny Butler. These are some of the best people I have ever met in my life. They're from season 36 of The Amazing Race, and Angie Butler actually reached out because if you remember season 36, she also had a hard time in the heat. And also, Angie she's a teacher. I
didn't know this, but she's a teacher, and throughout her career, she has been around children with autism, and she knew you had this condition before you even said it.
She knew. When I revealed that I had this condition, and that's why I was struggling so much on this episode. She said, I figured you had this condition.
She's like, I thought you were already diagnosed.
She thought I was already diagnosed, and I thought that was amazing that she picked up on those clues and was able to see that. But it was what impressed me more than anything was her ability to empathize with me during this episode, because I'm a very unlikable guy on this season so far. I'm getting the villain edit, and I'm fine with that. I can handle that. But I was just so impressed with her ability to see past that and to see my humanity in that moment. And God, Angie, you're just such an incredible human being, and we just wanted to give you a shout out here for that.
I just think we also have like a cultural problem. People see this tall, fit black male, and it's almost like they can't see it in themselves to give you the benefit of the doubt, to assume that there's a weakness there, that there might be something wrong with you. And that's a problem. That is a problem.
I think that could be playing a part here too. There's definitely a cultural issue there. I may look one way on the outside. I might have this kind of cocky, alpha male kind of demeanor, but you never know what someone is going through on the inside. So it's just always good to reserve judgment until you understand what's going on with the person, because you never know what's going on under the surface. So anyways, I want to also point out here, I was not nice in how I spoke to you. I'm not going to keep coming back to this. Obviously, I kind of addressed it at the beginning of the episode. The way I talked to you, not okay throughout this leg. And I think we talked about how we didn't know that I had this thing.
Right.
At the time.
We also had a lot of conversations like after the leg when, we went to the hotel room and trying to like unpack like what just happened. We both had a really bad day, but me trying to understand like, okay, I'm trying to be supportive, but it's not working. What can I do for you? Because that's not working. And my feelings are hurt. So what do we do? And we've, obviously it's hard when you don't, like he said, we don't have the proper tools and coping skills, but we've come a long way since. And it's a blessing now that we know what we know.
Yes. Anyways, anything else for number 4?
Those coconuts were heavy.
Coconuts,
That's
man.
it. Dang.
Yeah, not fun. Not a fun day so far.
No.
Anyways, let's lighten the mood and talk about some of the LOL moments that we encountered on this episode.
Yeah. Do you remember riding the bike? I remember, I saw the heat exhaustion in his face, and I'm like, babe, just ride the bike and I'll jog right next to you. And they're like, no, you can't ride the bike. So you're like, oh, shoot. So I grab the bike and I'm like jogging, down the boardwalk, and he's in front of me, and obviously he's not jogging as fast. He's struggling. I crash into your ankle.
It hurts like hell. I remember I was heated. I was mad. But
the location where this happened, there was, I want to say, how many ladies around us? It's
about
like
7 or 8.
I feel like it was more.
Maybe even more than that.
There was
maybe
like 10 ladies that were out by themselves. They left their husbands and kids behind, and they're all having a girls' day.
And Indonesia is a Muslim country, and they were dressed in the traditional hijab, and so these were
conservative women.
Conservative women. The gender dynamics in this part of the world are different. This is a Muslim country.
So they're hanging around, just taking pictures or looking around, and I come and crash this bike.
Our plant is dying. Sorry, but go ahead.
I crash this bike onto you, and these women are watching, and they all go, ah!
They shriek in horror, like this woman just struck this man with her bike. The impertinence.
And it was so loud.
They were aghast. I mean, they were shocked. I think they felt like, is this woman, are there going to be consequences for this?
Is she going to be alive after this?
Yeah, because I think they were just shocked that this woman had just crashed her bike into a man. It was just the way they reacted. It was so funny, and that's one of those times you realize you're in a different country. You have that kind of culture shock, like, 100%. Oh, this is not America. This is a totally different culture.
Stunned by the sound they were making. I was like,
if they
my
only
gosh, we
knew,
need to get out of here.
If they only knew how we actually are, and how look, this girl can dish it out just as much as she can take it, and if they only knew our real dynamic, they would be shocked. But
it was so funny though, their reaction. I am shocked it wasn't caught on camera, because it was the simultaneous sound that was coming out of their mouths. I was like,
it was funny.
My gosh, we need to go.
Keep
running.
I was really hoping to see that moment. Anyways, and then we have that little awkward moment where we get to Nusa Dua Beach, and there's a roadblock. Who wants to meet their match? And thankfully I did it, because once again we would be put on the water. And
honestly, I think I would have been able to, again, put my big girl panties on,
you think you would
grab the vest, and I would have done it. But I would have done it probably twice as long as you. And we were head to head to stay on the race.
Well, here's the thing. I had a feeling it was going to be water related. And the last thing I wanted to do, knowing that we were fighting for our lives here, was to put you back on the water. And so even though, I'm having a hard time at this point, I decided to do it. And we had this little, I grabbed the surfboard, and I'm kind of walking out to the beach, and we get this little kind of short film, this really awkward little short film where, we found it very amusing.
This is honestly my favorite part, because I had no idea this happened. And I'm watching the episode, and I'm like, what did you do? This was hilarious. Jonathan has his board. He's ready to get into the water. He looks at the judge. Did you know that was a judge, by the way? He was just like a bystander.
I realized he was a judge when he didn't respond to me. I said, "Oh, he must be a judge."
He literally looks at him. He's like, "Do you know where the yellow buoys are?" And of course, he doesn't respond to him. He's like, "No, nothing. All right." And he keeps walking, and then you slam your board onto the water.
Very awkward entrance into the water, and it was just kind of it was a moment we played back multiple times because it just made us laugh so
I was
hard.
literally in tears. So guys, I'm gonna give you hopefully the exact time so you guys can rewatch that if you catch that. I think that was just Jonathan just finding some way to just be comedic in the midst of
It was a rough watch for us. The leg was rough, and watching this leg
Everything,
was tough
from
on us.
beginning to
And
end.
so this was like a small moment where we were able to laugh and just kind of enjoy it. So yeah, I like that little mini movie I got there.
that was funny.
Anyways, I just felt like being silly, I guess.
Yeah, but it was a scary roadblock
For
nonetheless.
me, it was actually scary. I didn't realize that there were life vests there. Sorry. And if I could go back, I would have grabbed a life vest, but I was so out of it, and my brain was just
What are you
like
thinking?
in another place. And so I just like got that surfboard and I got out there. But once I was on the water, I was terrified. I was absolutely, because I realized like I don't have a life vest on out here. I'm not a good swimmer. This is my first time on a surfboard, and it was scary. This was one of the scarier roadblocks that I did on the show. And again, neither one of us had that comfort in the water.
It's the confidence. You don't have
Yeah.
that confidence to tackle the ocean like that.
We're not like Han. Excuse me. Han
Oh my
absolutely
gosh.
bodied this challenge. She
Such
got
a
up on that
badass.
board and just absolutely bodied this challenge. Shout out to Han for killing
Oh
this
my
thing.
gosh, you look so awesome.
That was
babe.
so cool.
That was
So
so
cool.
cool.
But us, on the other hand, we don't have that experience level that she doesn't. So it was harder for us. And
It's just so funny how they kept showing you like taking your rest.
yes.
Because
and
everybody said that it was hard. Like,
it was very hard.
Even
and
I'm
I'm sorry.
Even Jack mentioned he was still sore from threshing rice, and
Jack,
his back was hurting.
It was hard for Jack. It was hard for me. It was also hard for Mike and Scotty. And I just want to point out here, I'm going to call people out here. I wasn't the only one that rested on my surfboard.
Yeah.
There was another person there that
Yeah.
rested because they were also
take a
tired.
break.
It was a strenuous task.
Yeah.
And he took a break, but he caught no flack. Apparently, only I am the one that cannot rest or get tired or take a break, because
guess
Mike
not.
did it and
I
everybody
guess
was
not.
cool with that.
No
So
grace for you, baby.
it's cool when they do it. It's a problem when I do it. I guess that's what it is. Okay. Anyways, calling you guys out. You guys need to re-examine your biases, because you were apparently cool with Mike
100%
doing it, but not
biases.
cool with
Yeah.
me doing it.
Yeah.
Anyways, we gave the shout out to Angie and Danny. I guess that brings us to the
Yes.
end. We're coming to the end of the episode. We've survived.
We survived.
We
by
survived the double U-turn boat
Skin of our
by the skin of our teeth.
teeth.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
But really, neither one of us should have been in that position. I feel like it was just kind of
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
It was unfortunate that we had to fight for our lives that day.
Yeah.
Tough twist.
I just feel like you're put in situations in your life for a reason, right? And one of the many positive things that came from doing this incredible, amazing race was that your diagnosis finally came to light.
100%. 100%.
I mean, living as a male adult with these unexplained
100%.
reactions, it's not fun. And we were able to figure this out because of the race, and this was one of the legs that
100%.
shed the most light on this problem.
And honestly, I'm glad that I know now. And if I never went on the show, if I left after leg one,
We would still think that you're just this kind of oddball that has these little
weird
quirks and
but the fact that I fought through it and we did this race.
Right.
I know now that I have this thing, and that it's not something that I control. It's a disorder, and
Right.
it's helped me so much knowing that I have this. And I think that was definitely one of the reasons why God put us in this position to be on the
100%.
race. It was to find this thing
100%.
out about myself. So
and also to show that if this is you that has a disorder, you can still do the amazing race, because look at you. We were able to survive one of the hardest legs we could possibly imagine. Literally the perfect storm. All the events that came together and collided was a recipe for disaster, and
Yeah.
we overcame it.
Yeah,
Even
we
though
did.
it was hard and it was a disaster.
And we overcame it again and again and
overcame it.
again, because this would not be the end of our trials and tribulations on the race.
Right.
The Amazing Race is just constant adversity, and you become accustomed to adversity very quickly.
Right.
On the Amazing Race, and so
but adversity is nothing new to us.
It's nothing new to us, yeah.
We just need to just tackle it.
Keep
and
your
do
head
our
down
best.
and push through it. Yeah.
100%. That brings us to the end of our top 10 countdown.
That's
if you
it.
guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I would like to address some of them if you guys have them.
And please be respectful. You know, I'm open to criticism. I'm all about accountability, but you know, be respectful and civil, and we can have a conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. So stick around. Like 6 is coming up soon.
This Wednesday at 9:30.
Where are we going?
We're going to Dubai. No, it's another hot country. It's Dubai. It's even hotter than Bali, but it's a dry heat.
It's
a
different.
dry heat.
When you don't have the humidity involved, it feels
the humidity factor
totally different.
Changes everything. So we're in Dubai this week. Tune in on Wednesday at CBS and Paramount Plus.
All right, guys. Stick around. We'll see you next time.